When it comes to mob history, the name Carmine Galante sparks vivid memories of one of the most ruthless and feared mobsters of the 20th century. His rise to power, brutal tactics, and violent end in a hail of bullets made Galante a legend in organized crime lore. If you've ever heard stories of mobsters that make your skin crawl, chances are some of them involved Galante. Let's dive into the story of how this infamous mob boss known as Lilo, Italian for cigar, met his untimely demise in one of Brooklyn's most notorious mob hits. It's a tale that still echoes through the gritty streets of New York to this day, filled with suspense, betrayal, and mobster intrigue. Before we get into the dramatic events of Galante's murder, it's important to understand who this man was and why his death was such a defining moment for the Mafia. Born in 1910 to Sicilian immigrants in East Harlem, New York, Carmine Galante grew up in a tough neighborhood where crime was a way of life. By his early teens, Galante was already making a name for himself in local gangs, and it wasn't long before the Mafia came calling. Galante's rise within the Bonanno crime family was swift and bloody. Known for his no-nonsense approach to eliminating enemies, he quickly gained a reputation for his cold-blooded methods. Whether it was orchestrating hits or making alliances, Galante showed he had no qualms about using violence to achieve his goals. His ruthlessness didn't just help him climb the Mafia hierarchy, it also made him a man to be feared. As his influence grew within the Bonanno family, so did his involvement in illicit activities. Throughout the 1940s and 50s, Galante became involved in a range of illegal activities, from narcotics trafficking to contract killings. His role in the notorious heroin trade earned him infamy as one of the architects of Mafia's lucrative drug empire. In the 1960s and 70s, Galante's role in the international drug trade transformed him into one of the most powerful mobsters in the world. His collaboration with the Sicilian Mafia allowed him to establish a direct pipeline for heroin, which became a cornerstone of the Mafia's operations. This pipeline, famously dubbed the French Connection, funneled heroin from Europe to the US, making Galante millions of dollars. The heroin flooded the streets of New York, contributing to the city's drug epidemic while also lining the pockets of the Bonanno family. But with immense power came immense risk. Galante's operation didn't just make him a target for law enforcement, it also created jealousy and animosity among rival mob families who felt he wasn't sharing the wealth. By the mid-1970s, Galante wasn't content with just being a powerful underboss. His ambitions reached much higher. He wanted to be the top dog, not just in Bonanno family, but across all the New York's organized crime. His boldness and greed, however, led him to make enemies. He started eliminating rivals within the family and anyone who posed a threat to his rise of power. Galante's actions made it clear that he was willing to do whatever it took to become the undisputed kingpin of the Mafia. But his aggressive expansionist mindset also made him reckless, and his disregard for the delicate balance of power in the Mafia universe set the stage for his downfall. In the world of organized crime, there are unspoken rules, and Carmine Galante had violated many of them. The Mafia Commission, which was essentially the governing body of the five families, saw Galante as a rogue. His refusal to share the profits from his heroin empire alienated not just rival mob families, but also members of his own organization. Within the Bonanno family, there were whispers of discontent. He had made enemies of the Gambino, Colombo, and Genovese families by refusing to cut them in on the profits from the heroin trade. These were powerful rivals, and Galante's arrogance in keeping the lion's share of the drug money to himself would prove to be his undoing. They saw Galante's dominance as a threat to the balance of power they had carefully cultivated. His blatant disregard for the Mafia's unwritten rules made him a target, and soon plans were being hatched to eliminate him once and for all. On the hot summer afternoon of July 12, 1979, Carmine Galante, believing himself invincible, was enjoying a leisurely lunch at Joe and Mary's Italian-American restaurant in Brooklyn. Seated at a garden table in the back of the restaurant with his trusty bodyguard, Leonard Coppola, and his Sicilian associate, Giuseppe Turano, Galante was unaware that his fate had already been sealed. The picturesque setting, a typical Brooklyn afternoon, filled with wine and hearty Italian fare, bellied the tension bubbling beneath the surface. Outside the restaurant, plans for Galante's assassination were already in motion, and his killers were preparing to strike with precision. What made this moment even more shocking was the betrayal that was about to take place just a few feet away. The hit on Galante wasn't just the result of rival mob families seeking to eliminate him. It was also a betrayal from within his own ranks. Sitting at the same table with Galante was Cesar Bonventre and Baldo Amato, men who had sworn to protect him. These two Sicilian bodyguards had secretly conspired with Galante's enemies to set him up for assassination. As Galante enjoyed his meal, completely unaware of the looming danger, his loyal bodyguards calmly continued eating, fully knowing that their betrayal was only moments away. The casualness with which they carried out this betrayal sent chills through the Mafia underworld. Loyalty in the world of organized crime was fickle, bought and sold for a price, and Galante was about to pay the ultimate price. In the blink of an eye, the quiet lunch was shattered by the sound of gunfire. 3 masked gunmen stormed into the restaurant's patio, armed with shotguns and pistols. Without hesitation, they opened fire on Galante and his companions, unleashing a brutal storm of bullets. Galante was hit multiple times, including in the head and chest, instantly slumping over in his chair. The iconic image of his lifeless body, a cigar still hanging from his mouth, would become one of the most memorable and haunting images in Mafia history. His bodyguard Coppola and associate Tirano also met a gruesome end, their blood staining the patio where they had just been peacefully dining. In a twist of betrayal that could only happen in the Mafia world, Bonventre and Amato, Galante's trusted bodyguards, walked away from the massacre unscathed, further solidifying their role in orchestrating the hit. The message was clear. Carmine Galante, once one of the most feared mob bosses in New York, had been set up by his own men, and the Mafia had sent a warning to anyone who tried to overstep their bounds. The hit on Carmine Galante sent shockwaves through the underworld. His death wasn't just a violent mob hit, it symbolized the Mafia's ruthless, unforgiving nature. No one, not even someone as powerful as Galante, was safe if they threatened the delicate balance of power. In the days that followed, newspapers plastered the photo of Galante's lifeless body across the front pages. The public, long fascinated by the Mafia, devoured every detail of the hit. To the world, Galante's death was a brutal reminder of the Mafia's grip on New York. For law enforcement, it was an opportunity to finally weaken the Mafia's stronghold on organized crime. Within the Mafia, however, Galante's murder had deeper implications. It was a power move, a signal that no one was too powerful to be eliminated. The Bonanno family quickly regrouped, with new leadership taking over, but the aftermath of Galante's assassination lingered for years. His death marked the end of an era where a single mob boss could reign supreme without consequences. Today, the story of Carmine Galante lives on in Mafia folklore. His rise and fall represent the danger of unchecked ambition in the underworld. For mob historians and enthusiasts, Galante's death is often cited as a turning point in the Mafia's power structure, a moment where internal conflicts and betrayals led to the downfall of one of the most feared men in New York. Galante's infamous mob hit has been referenced in countless books, documentaries, and films, each recounting the chilling details of that July afternoon in Brooklyn. The image of Galante's cigar, still clenched in his teeth as he lay dead, remains a symbol of how even the most powerful men can be brought down by their own misdeeds. The photograph of Galante's murder scene captured by police has become one of the most famous crime scene images in American history. The cigar, still in his mouth even after death, is an eerie reminder of his nickname, Lilo, and his infamous reputation. This image alone has fueled the mystique surrounding Galante's death, immortalizing him as one of the most memorable mobsters to meet his end in such a public, violent fashion. Galante's death wasn't just a major hit for the Bonanno family, it was a blow to the entire Mafia infrastructure in New York. His reckless pursuit of power and refusal to cooperate with other families threatened to disrupt the Mafia's way of life. With his removal, the Commission, the governing body of the Mafia, could restore balance and prevent one family from monopolizing the lucrative drug trade. In many ways, Galante's assassination marked the beginning of the end for the Mafia's dominance in New York. As law enforcement ramped up efforts to take down the 5 families, High-profile murders like Galante's put a spotlight on the Mafia's operations. Galante's death became part of a larger crackdown that saw the slow erosion of the Mafia's influence over the next few decades. The assassination of Carmine Galante was a defining moment in mob history, a dramatic, bloody reminder that no one was untouchable. His rise to power, driven by greed and violence, was ultimately his undoing, as even his most trusted men turned against him. The story of Galante's hit continues to fascinate mob enthusiasts, historians, and anyone captivated by the dark, shadowy world of organized crime. Galante's tale is more than just a story of one man's ambition. It's a reflection of the Mafia's inner workings, where betrayal is as common as loyalty, and power comes with a price. To this day, his death is remembered as one of the most infamous mob hits in history, and his legacy as a feared and ruthless mob boss lives on, cementing Carmine Galante's place in the annals of organized crime history.